School is the one place where I'm completely lost.
Schools could do a much better job
In
of building
school, you
community.
need
I
to
have my
build
hand
Feels
up
like
all the
I'm
time.
always
Is
doing
anyone
wrong
even
and
noticing
feeling
me?
bad.
I feel invisible. I really like my one teacher. She's
Don't
Some
say
teachers
it.
are
You wanna
understanding.
go over there
My
and calm
teachers
down?
recognize I
He
have
helped
a
me
learning
get an
issue.
assessment.
I don't want to go to school anymore due to being bullied at school.
There's
I
bullying.
failed 2
I don't
classes
feel
right after
welcome.
the assault.
We don't all come from stable homes.
Welcome to the School Attendance Review podcast, where we talk about the Yukon education system, the school attendance review done by the Child and Youth Advocate Office, and how that review relates to what's happening right now for Yukon students. All right, so I'm super excited to be back here for another episode. This is the final episode, the fifth and last of our series with the Child and Youth Advocate Office. And today we're here with Rachel. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel.
Thanks, Maxime. I'm excited to be here.
And Rachel is the Systemic and Policy Analyst at the Child and Youth Advocate Office. Did I get that all right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you also do individual case stuff.
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything.
A little bit of
Yeah.
everything. Awesome. So today we're talking about educational and behavioral supports. So let's just start by what does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So educational and behavioral supports can look like quite a few different things. Mostly what we're seeing is issues getting access to assessments or just having that sort of EA support in classrooms to help out with different educational needs or behavioral needs.
Yeah, okay. And so we know that there's been more and more advocacy issues related to education coming up in recent years. And I guess last year, like 2022-23, the number of new advocacy issues related to education was more than family and children's services, which my understanding is that's a big deal. That hasn't happened before, right?
Yeah, so we started seeing this trend in 2021, and we can pretty confidently say that this trend is something that's continuing.
So how much of all that relate to what we're talking about today, to educational and behavioral supports?
Yeah, so educational and behavioral supports is a complex and long-standing issue, and it's something that we're still really grappling with. At the time the school attendance review was published, over a third of the educational and behavioral issues that YCAO had received in the last 10 years were still unresolved. So that doesn't necessarily mean those cases were 10 years old, but they were sort of more long-standing cases, and it definitely indicated that, there was a problem getting those issues resolved.
Okay.
And even as of last week, we've had 39 active issues related to educational and behavioral supports that haven't been addressed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And educational and behavioral supports, how does that come up? What does that sort of look like?
Yeah, we see these issues crop up in many ways, like I said. So it can be anything from problems gaining access to timely assessments, individual education plans and student learning plans that aren't being implemented. Can be a lack of educational assistance and resources allocated to schools despite, specialist recommendations.
Okay.
Can be a lack of behavioral interventions that address the roots of behaviors and help repair the harm. In extreme cases, we're seeing kids that are removed from school that can either be full-time, part-time, just because they don't have the support that they need.
Right. So in there, you mentioned EAs, or educational assistants. Can you expand on EAs? That's something I've heard a lot too.
Yeah, so we hear about the ongoing challenges that exist sort of filling and retaining those EA positions.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a vicious cycle. The kids aren't getting the support they need, so they're acting out. And this is just really taxing on the EAs over time, especially if they aren't getting the breaks or the assistance that they need when they're facing these difficult situations on a daily basis,
Yeah.
In some cases, they're lacking the training to respond to the behaviors, and unfortunately, we're seeing them, burn out. And we
Yeah.
understand the challenges and capacity, but the kids are carrying the brunt of those challenges.
Yeah, that's tricky. Definitely tricky. And you also mentioned recommendations that specialists were making for the Department of Ed. What does that mean? What kind of recommendations, and where does that sort of come from?
Yeah, so I mean, again, like the theoretical review and research is out there. We've seen many different reports on the issues around behavioral and education supports. Our review, the attendance review, the Nikki Yee review on special and inclusive education,
Yeah.
that was released in 2021. You know, the Auditor General has done a couple of reports. There was one from 2009 and one from 2019.
Yeah.
All of these reports had similar findings and recommendations, and we were really optimistic when the department accepted the recommendations, but we've been seeing that the action has been, you know, pretty slow, and it's just we
Okay.
haven't seen it translate into results.
Okay. And what about, I know there's the RISE team as well, the Reimagining Inclusive and Special Education team. And they've been very involved in like restructuring things and trying to address all these reports. How has that been from your standpoint?
I mean, I think it's really great that the Department of Ed created the RISE team, and they definitely, you know, have presented a really fulsome vision and strategy, but we just haven't seen the impact on children yet. And, you know, according to the Department of Ed, they have a timeline that's, you know, posted on their website, and it shows that RISE has moved from beyond a take action phase on their communities of inquiry process timeline, and they're in a check phase. But like this goes back to one of the key findings from the Auditor General's report, and I'll quote, "The department didn't know whether its approach to inclusive education was working." So we haven't seen a whole lot about what's happening with RISE or what impacts the department has seen, if any, and their steps should be more linear.
Yeah.
The actions should be assessed as they're occurring so that they can be adjusted if needed. You know, something that I say is like that kids can't wait years to go through a frustrating process only to be told, you know, sorry, we need to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Let us just come up with a strategy.
Yeah.
And you can just wait. Yeah, that's totally fair. So you're kind of happy with the plan that RISE has put forward, but you haven't seen the action yet that you're hoping for. Does that kind of sum it up?
Yeah, I'd say so. And like I said, there's a lack of communication that we're seeing as well.
Okay. I wanted to quote from the review here. A vision of what could be would have students' behavioral issues recognized as symptoms of underlying emotional distress or an absence of understanding and empathy rather than standalone disruptive content. So basically, trying to understand kids' behaviors or challenges as coming from somewhere and like trying to get to the root of the cause. That sort of idea has come up again and again while doing this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think this quote really brings to light how connected all of the themes of the review are and what we've been trying to get across. There's not,
Yeah.
you know, going to be a simple solution to this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts, and progress will be up and down. We totally expect that. But the goal is to keep moving in the right direction. These aren't bad kids. They're
Yeah.
kids who aren't getting what they need from the adults in their lives, even if the adults have the best intentions.
Yeah.
I really think, you know, taking the time to listen to what the kids are telling you through their words and actions is extremely valuable, and including restorative rather than punitive responses to discipline is going to go
Yeah.
a long way.
For sure.
These kids just want to feel heard and understood.
Absolutely. So yeah, we know these themes, they're all sort of interconnecting, and we know solutions are so complicated because there's so many reasons behind, for example, why a kid might be having these behavioral challenges in school. And so you mentioned, you know, trying to keep going in the right direction. That's sort of the goal. What does that look like for you? What does that mean?
Truly, like each one of the themes in the school attendance report could be their own separate review.
Yeah.
For our office, we're really going to be focusing on accountability and public education and tracking progress. I know something that's been mentioned in some of the previous episodes is the progress tracker that our office just launched. And
Yeah.
we're really going to be taking the time to sort of go through all of the systemic reviews that we've done and, you know, making further recommendations or assessing the progress that's been made. And the school attendance review is going to be the next one that we're tackling.
Cool. Yeah, that's great to hear. Do you have any other examples of more concrete ways of like what that looks like going forward?
Yeah, so we're going to be bringing together folks from different areas, including education, mental wellness, and family and children's services to develop a holistic approach to navigating these complex cases that I was talking about.
Yeah.
But, you know, there will be more to come on that.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear because it always comes up as being so intersectional. and we need to have different departments working together. We're nearing the end here, and I wanted to quote again. We've quoted this before, but I wanted to reiterate this message because it really sums things up nicely. So in the report, Annette King, the advocate, said, sort of addressing to the youth, "We have heard from you that school needs to be a place where you feel connection and belonging, where you feel safe, where you feel capable of succeeding, and where you have someone who believes in you." So there seems to be that like theme of relationships is in all these episodes. All these challenges relate back to maybe lack of positive relationships. And a lot of the recommendations and the solutions have to do with creating positive relationships or building on relationships. And that could be relationships among students or between students and teachers, students and other support staff, even community members. It could also be the relationship between families in the schools, all kinds of relationships.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely not there yet because we certainly
Yeah.
aren't seeing it for every student, but that's why our office exists. We maintain a level of accountability with government systems, and we believe in the Yukon youth. Every day we do encounter natural advocates in the school system, and, they have the same vision as we do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is a lot of people doing really great work out there, and at the same time, it's clear that there's lots more to be done to support Yukon students. Well, that sort of takes us to the end, and I've really enjoyed diving in a little bit deeper into these topics with the Child and Youth Advocate team. Really grateful for all of your time and for your time today, Rachel. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Maxime. It's been great to sort of like dive a bit deeper into these themes with you.
Awesome. And also want to thank our listeners. Shout out to our listeners. Thank you all so much for listening to the podcast series. And we really hope you sort of felt connected to it and you got a lot from it. And stay tuned for whatever might be coming next.